Hi guys, happy to see you all back through this video. And in this video, in this video we're just going to see about the virtualization technologies and the server virtualization. Okay, so in the previous video we can discuss about the basics of virtualization, and in this video we're just going to focus on these two things. One is the virtualization technologies and another one is the server virtualization how the server virtualization can be provided. So these things only we're going to see in this video, so let us see one by one. And coming to the virtualization technologies, what do you mean by virtualization? In the sense, it is a set of techniques. It is a set of techniques and tools which facilitates the environment to provide and manage the dynamic data center infrastructure. So what do you mean by dynamic data infrastructure? In the sense, when we are having a data center in our organization, so that could be configured, that could be created virtually in order to provide the services to their to the employees of the particular organization. So these things can be, the server could be configured dynamically. The server could be configured dynamically. So that is the concept behind the virtualization technology. That is the concept behind the virtualization technology. So normally, what is the main purpose of virtualization? In the sense, it acts as a backbone. So it acts as a backbone for for the cloud computing to deliver the services to the cloud user. So without virtualization technology, the cloud computer is not in a position. The cloud computing environment or cloud service provider are not in a position to deliver any set of services to the cloud users. Okay, because that's why the virtualization technologies call it as backbone of the cloud computing. And otherwise, the virtualization technology is, it can be defined as, in another way, it can be defined as the abstraction of four computing resources. What are those? In the sense, the one is storage, processing power, memory, and network are input and output. Okay, so normally the virtualization technology can be otherwise defined as it is the it's an abstraction of four computing resources. Okay. So as you all aware that the difference between the physical and the virtual, right? As you all know the difference between the physical existence and the virtual, right? Okay, in a previous slide, in a previous video, we have discussed, I have given enough amount of definition for the for the difference between the physical and the virtual machine, and the virtual machine. Okay, then if you wish, you can just go through the video to know the difference between the physical machine and the virtual machine. Okay, and now how the virtualization technology architecture looks like in the sense. So this is the underlying hardware. This is the underlying hardware. So which comprises of all the hardware resources. Okay, and above the hardware layer, above the particular server layer, what we do in the sense, we will install, or we will deploy a virtualization layer. So this virtualization layer can be created with the help of any one of the virtualization management software. What do you mean by VMM? In the sense, virtual machine monitor. Okay, these things have to be deployed, virtual machine monitor. Okay, so this has to be deployed over the server layer. So VMM could be otherwise called as hypervisor. Hypervisor. Okay, so this hypervisor has to be placed above the physical server layer. Just look at the term physical server layer, which means that this server is this server is existing. This service existed physically. So above the server layer, we are placing that particular hypervisor. Once the user, say for an example, U1 issues the request for creating a Fedora environment, and for creating a Fedora environment with 1 GB of RAM and 10 GB of hard disk. In the sense, say for an example, consider the scenario. Once the user issues the request, then the request will be processed by the particular hypervisor. Once the request has been processed, and that particular resources, whatever the resources that the particular user has requested, and that will be given to the particular user for creating the virtual environment. So here you just look at the term guest OS, right? The guest OS, in the sense, if the user 1 wishes to create a Fedora environment, they can create a Fedora environment virtually. Likewise, if the user 2 wishes to create an Ubuntu environment, and Ubuntu environment, that environment also can be created, but the underlying hardware is same. So in the same underlying hardware, I can create a virtual machine in different set of operating systems. So normally the virtualization is provided. The virtualization provides the environment where the user can create their own virtual environment, where the user can create their own virtual environment. So this is the beauty of the virtualization technique. So this is the beauty of the virtualization technique. So now that's why it acts as a backbone for the cloud computing for delivering the services, because what in a consider AWS, they are having a huge data center. They are having a huge number of data centers in all over the world. Okay, nearly it has 50 plus regions in the world. So each and every region has multiple number of availability AZs, availability zones, and each and every availability zone has n number of data centers. So okay, and so the hardware is normally the hardware is same, but whenever the user is creating a virtual machine, okay, that could be differ from one user to another user, but the underlying hardware is same. In the same underlying hardware, any user can create their own virtual environment. So this is the beauty of the virtualization technology. So that's why it is called as backbone of the cloud computing. Okay, and coming to that next one, and the virtualization layer will partition the physical resource, right? So in a previous slide what we have seen, this physical layer has been partitioned according to the needs of the virtual machine 1, according to the needs of the virtual machine 2, according to the needs of the virtual machine 3. So normally this physical layer has been partitioned based on that particular virtual machine virtual environment. Okay, so that's why so that is the meaning over given here. That is the definition given here, that normally the virtualization layer will partition the physical resource of the underlying physical server into multiple virtual machines. So normally the VMM, what it does in the sense, it allocates the physical resources and makes, just listen carefully, it makes each virtual machine think that it totally owns the whole underlying physical resources. Okay, this is the one of the important term that we have to consider. Okay, so with the help of virtualization technology, what we can do in the sense, we can the particular VMM, particular virtual machine can think that it totally owns the whole underlying hardware physical resources. Okay, and this is the this comes under the virtualization technologies. Okay, and by the virtualization, the following thing can be achieved. What are those in the sense, it make it makes very flexible and manageable resources in the cloud computing environment. Obviously, okay, whatever the resources that are put up in a cloud computing environment, whatever the resources that are put up in the cloud computing environment, those resources can be those resources are very flexible and easy to manage the resources that are available in the cloud computing environment. And it improves the utilization of such resources, Say for an example, if the user one has created a virtual environment, some set of resources will be allocated to them, right? Isn't it? So once the user terminated his process, then whatever the resources that the particular VM is having, everything will be released and brought back to that cloud computing environment again. Okay, so thereby what we can do in the sense, those set of resources can be used by some other user, resources. So normally whatever the resources that are reside in the cloud computing environment, that could be availed in a 24/7 manner. Okay, so this is the beauty of the virtualization technology. Okay, and it also enables, highly reliable and agile deployment mechanism and management of service. Obviously, it provides an on-demand computing and prevents on-demand computing, and it also live migration services is also there in order to improve the reliability. Surely we will see dig deeper into the live migration process in the next video. Okay, and so give me a moment of time, let me erase this. Fine. Okay, so this is about the virtualization technologies. Okay, so next we are going to see about the server virtualization. So as you all know what I mean by server virtualization in this, right? So normally if the VMM has placed above the server, above the physical server, then the particular technique is called as server virtualization. Okay, I'm telling you again. So if the VMM or hypervisor, that is being placed above the physical server, then it is called as the server virtualization. So what the server virtualization done in the sense, we will see. we will see. Let me give me a moment of time. Okay, fine. So what is the purpose of server virtualization in the sense, it is partitioning a physical server into several virtual servers. Okay, so consider this is the physical server, physical server, okay. And if the if the VMM or hypervisor placed above the physical server in the sense, and with the help of VMM, what we can do in the sense, we can partition the physical server into more than one virtual server, okay. Say for an example, here if I have divided 5 virtual server in the sense, so each and every virtual server has its own functionality. Say for an example, this particular virtual server can handle FTP related request, and second virtual server can it can deal with mailing services in such a way. So this physical server, the burden of this physical server can be easily reduced with the help of these virtual servers, okay. So in a normal big IT organization or in a big MNCs, what they do in the sense, above the physical server layer, they would place the the VMM or hypervisor, and thereby they can partition the physical server into number of virtual server in order to manage each and every virtual server has some dedicated functionalities, okay. So thereby the physical the burden of the the workload of the particular physical server can be easily reduced, okay. So this is the great advantage when you are moving on to the server virtualization concept, okay. So that is the biggest advantage of moving on to the server virtualization concept, okay. So normally the resource server are itself hidden from the users, and the VMM is used to partition, and the particular VMM is used to partition the particular physical server into more than one virtual server. Otherwise this virtual server is called it as private servers, okay. Otherwise the virtual server is called as private server, okay. And which reserve the dedication of one server to a single application or a task. Say for an example, this V1 can handle some set of services that are related to FTP, and second virtual server can handle some set of services that are related to mail. In such a way, we can assign a task to each and every virtual server, so that the workload of the particular physical server can be easily reduced, okay. That is the great advantage of moving on to the server virtualization concept, okay. Yeah. And with the help of server virtualization, what we can achieve in the sense, first one, to make more efficient user server resource, obviously, and it also improve the server availability, obviously, to help in disaster recovery, development, testing, and to centralize the server administration. So these all are the advantages when we are moving on to that server virtualization concept, okay. And so in any kind of in any kind of environment, how the virtual machine can be created, in the sense, first the request will be issued. Once the request has been issued, the particular VM will be provisioned. We will see what is VM provision in the next slide, okay. So once the VM has been provisioned, and that will be given to the user for executing their task, for executing their services. Once they finish their services, and that virtual machine will be terminated, and whatever the resources that are allocated to the virtual machine, everything will be released, and will be given back to the resource pool, okay. This is how normally the virtual machine life cycle works, okay. So first the request will be issued, and based on the request, the VMM process the request. Once the request has been processed, the VMM will be provisioned, the VMM will be created, but the particular virtual machine will be created, okay. And once the virtual machine has been created, and that will be given to the environment for executing their services. Once they finish their services, and that particular virtual machine will be released. Once it is released, then whatever the resources that the particular virtual machine is having, and that will be released, and that will be given back to that the resource pool. So this is how normally the virtual machine life cycle works. Virtualization life cycle works, okay. Yeah. And next, how the particular how the particular this thing is going to be happen, the VM provisioning. So we are going to see much deeper about the virtual machine provisioning. Okay, we are going to see how the virtual machine provisioning is happening, okay, in the next slide, in the coming slides. Okay, and so these are the steps we need to follow for to provide the virtual machine, okay. So let us see one by one. Okay, so what are the steps to provision? What are the steps that we need to follow to provision VM in the sense? First, we need to collect all the resources. First, we need to collect all the resources and the application that has to be put up in a pool, that has to be collected in a pool. Okay, so once it has been collected, you know what they do in the sense. Once it has been collected, what they do in the sense, then they load the OS and appliances. What does it mean in the sense? Say for an example, so if I wish to create a server virtualization, then what we have to do, we have to install a server operating system and the relevant appliances in the sense relevant drivers, of course, that has to be loaded in the particular virtual environment. Once it has been loaded, the second step is what is the second step in the sense? And the second step in the sense, we need to customize and configure, which means that what is the meaning of customize and configure in the sense? If the particular virtual server is intended to create to deal with FTP in the sense, then the server has to be configured in such a way. Then the server has to be customized and configured in such a way in order to deal with the FTP related request. Okay, that is the second step. Okay, coming to the third step, we have to install the patches. That is, we need to install some system calls, some programs that are being run, that could be run in a background process to deal with the particular FTP related services. Okay, the install patches is mandatory. Okay, the install patches is mandatory. So once the patches has been installed, then what we need to do, we need to start the server. So what are the first step? So we need to load the operating system and appliances. Once it has been done, then we need to customize and configure the server in order to provide the services that the particular server is intended to provide. Okay, so once it has been done, then we need to install the patches. Once the patches has been installed, then we need to start the server. So once the server has been started, then what we need to do, we need to give the particular server, then we need to provide the particular server to the environment for providing the services, So these are the steps. What are the first step? We need to load the OS and appliances, and the second step is we need to customize and configure, and third step is install the patches, and the fourth step is start the server. So once the server has started, then we need to give the server to that particular environment for providing the services to the cloud users. So these are the four steps. That are being followed in order to provide the virtual machine environment, in order to provide the virtualization. Okay, and so normally the server provisioning is we are defining a server configuration. Based on the underlying hardware. So normally, the virtual machine can be provisioned. Just listen carefully. So normally the virtual machine can be provisioned by manually install an operating system. Otherwise, we can pre-configure a VM template. Suppose if the template is already available, then that template can be configured. Then that template can be customized according to our needs. Otherwise, what is the third option in the sense? We can clone an existing virtual machine. Suppose if we are having one virtual machine, we are having one server virtual machine in the sense that can be cloned. Okay, that can be cloned into another virtual machine. Okay, so thereby we can provide a virtual machine. So first thing is we have to install an operating system manually. Otherwise, we can use a pre-configured virtual machine template. What is the third one? We can clone an existing virtual machine. So what is the fourth way in the sense? We can import a physical server or a virtual server from another hosting platform. Say for an example, if an organization is having two branches, one in place A and another one in place B, in the sense, if they are having one physical server, virtual server in a branch A, in the sense, that could be imported to the another branch also. In such a way, we can provide a virtual machine. Okay, yeah, we got it right. Fine. And next and a template, a template will be created after creating a virtual machine by virtualizing physical server or by building a new virtual server in the virtual environment. Okay, so normally, so once the physical server is having, once we are having a physical server, so that could be created, the virtual server can be created. The physical server is partitioned into more number of parts. So in each and every partition can have each partition can have one virtual server in order to manage the requests, or in order to reduce the workload. Okay, so such virtualization can be obtained with the help of VMware, Zen server, in order to provide the data center administration. If we wish to have a data center administration under virtualization concept, then we need to go for VMware or Zen server concept, okay, in order to perform such things. Okay, fine. So normally, what do you mean by server virtualization? If we have deployed, if we are deploying VMM, the VMM, which means that virtual machine monitor or hypervisor, above the server layer, above the server, then it is called as the server virtualization. And that way, what we can achieve, the particular server can be partitioned into more than one, and each and every partition we can create virtual machine under each and every partition, so that the burden of the particular physical server can be easily reduced. So this is the advantage of the server virtualization, and this is about this video's content. And if you wish, you can ping or follow me through any one of the social media. And I'm really happy, guys, to share my ideas with you all. Thank you. Thanks for your time. Thank you, guys.